My father was a Baptist preacher, and he would, on the way home from church, talk about The Room. I know a lot of you actors in Los Angeles talk about The Room, but he was talking about the energy that people had brought to church. And I want to thank you all for bringing your energy to this room today. We have been talking a great deal all weekend long about the power of energy and the fact that all of us bring energy, and we have someone with us this morning to talk a little more deeply about that than perhaps we have ever thought, about the power of energy that's used in healing. We believe that the energy that created the very cosmos is the energy that comes through us in experiences of healing. We have healing in our services every Sunday. For those of you visiting with us, we're thrilled you're here. For those of you who are watching by live streaming, we welcome you. We have welcome bags over here for those of you who are visiting with us. If you'd like to know about upcoming conferences and workshops, we'd love to have you return. Well, my newest best friend is Patrick Sanfrancesco. He's a physician, a healer, lives in Goa, India, went through Jesuit high school, and he may or may not tell a few jokes about that. A very playful and powerful person who illustrates in ways that you will feel and know the gospel we had today, that when you really live a life of compassion toward the ill and the poor, you are experiencing God. Patrick goes into the streets of India, healing people, loving people, and he's brought that healing energy and love to us. So without further ado, please welcome our good friend Patrick Sanfrancesco.
Thank you very much. I think Ed exaggerated a bit. I was highly impressed just listening to that. Patrick's a rather common name, so I suppose there was another Patrick around who's going to speak. I've been asked to tell you about my life. To be honest, it's quite a bore. Do you really want to get bored with that? Yes. Okay, you asked for it. Most people ask me, why did I start what I did? And why did I do what I do? Honestly, I don't know. But I could say there were like 2 or 3 incidents in my life that changed me. The first was, I was coming out of a church with Hallelujah on my lips, glory to God in my mind, and then I see this, it was just beginning to rain, and I see this little leper sitting outside the church. I must have been about 11 or 12 years old, and I looked at him and I said, why don't you go home, it's going to rain. And he just gave me a toothy smile and said, I don't have a home. So I said, where's your mom and dad, and where's everybody? And he said, they threw me out because I'm a leprosy patient and they're scared of getting the contagion. So I said, it's going to rain, where are you going to hide? So he said, maybe under some street, lamp or something like that, or some shelter under the bridge, because nobody wants me anywhere. So I walked home in the rain that day, totally unmindful that I was being soaked and worrying about this one incident. And said, how can he not have a home? I always have a home. No matter how naughty I am, I go home, I have a home. I don't deserve one half the time. And with my parents, I spoke to my dad, I told him this incident, and he just said, yes, that's the way of the world. So I set off on my little journey. I used to make cakes and sell as a sort of a hobby in the evenings to earn pocket money. And I had saved up quite a bit. I'm a little bit of a Jew over there. so I located a little house on the outskirts of the city and decided to rent it out. But the landlord looked at this little lad in short pants and he says, where you come from? You run away from home or what? So I said, no, I want to rent your house. So eventually he refused to rent me the house until I got my dad, and then we took the house. And then I sneaked in this little leprosy boy. The moment the landlord found that, he went into a panic. He says, now no one's going to rent my house after this because everybody's so scared of leprosy patients. So, twisting my dad's arm, I made him buy the house. Promised to pay him a few rupees every year towards the house, which I never did. And it went on from there. Today it's, I think, the largest leprosy home in the world. It started in 1970. Anyway, so that's one incident that changed my life. Another was, I was entering this big fancy hotel with my dad, and everybody was scurrying around some gentleman who was getting into the car. So I asked my dad, who's this guy? And he says, oh, he's a big politician. And I just stopped and I looked at him, and I said, what happens when he's dying? Will all these people be able to help him? You know, what came to my mind was Humpty Dumpty. You know, all the king's horses and all the king's men. And I said, oh no, I don't want to be that way. And of course, Patrick being Patrick, I skipped through life forgetting about everything else, went about my little selfish ways and whatever. Then I made a trip to Goa. I was doing my studies in Bangalore in a Jesuit school. So I went to Goa for a holiday, which is my family home. And then my aunt told me there's the exposition of a body of a saint whose body is kept in Goa. I don't know if you know about him, St. Francis Xavier. Maybe you heard of him or not, I don't know. Well, I didn't want to go and see some dead body. I wanted to go to the beach. But I was dragged by my ear and come along. And you can pray for anything, you'll get it. So that sounded like a good deal, so I said, all right. So looking at this dead body, and I said, oh, what am I doing here? I'm supposed to ask for something. So again, my little horns come up, and I asked for something. So when I came out of the church, my aunt asked me, what did you ask for? I said, oh, I won't tell you. So I get 2 good cracks in my ear and said, what did you ask for? So I said, I asked that I never have to do my homework ever again. She was so upset. She said, you stupid boy. You're supposed to ask him to make you clever, to make you obedient, to make you good, not this rubbish. He'll never give this to you. Well, anyway, I tried. Go back to school. The principal calls me and says, Patrick, there's a letter here that says that you've been selected to represent the state. So from now on, I'm exempting you from homework. I just wanted to run back to Goa with a big list. So from then on, I just hopped and skipped through life, getting just whatever I wanted. I never thought I could not get it. And I always thought about it, who is the happiest man in the world? And I kept thinking, and I want to be the happiest man in the world. And then I realized it was Santa Claus. I said, here's a guy who comes laughing, giving gifts to everybody, and whatever you want, making everybody happy. I said, I want to be Santa Claus. So this need to do something to make people happy became my deepest wish. And I always felt I would need some kind of supernatural power to do this. So I began to read books on witchcraft, scary stuff, wow, and stuff like that. Where do I get the supernatural power from? But nothing happened. Until one night I had a dream that when I woke up, I was able to walk without touching the ground. My feet were in the air. And in my dream, I didn't want to sit down because I would lose this wonderful gift. Anyway, in the morning, I went to my mom. I still remember she was there scrambling eggs. And my mom's Dutch and very down to earth. So I said, guess, Mom, what happened last night? I dreamt I was walking and wasn't touching the ground. So she said, oh, that's nice. I said, isn't that fantastic? She says, yes, but what use is it to anybody? I came down to the ground. Trust my mother, trust my mother. Punctured my little balloon, and I was down on the ground. And I always had this feeling whenever somebody was sick, I would tell God, why? What's wrong with you? Why are you giving them that sickness? Give it to me. I'll take it. Arrogant little lad that I was. And I would hold them and say, you'll get better. And they would feel better, but nobody took me really seriously, nor did I take myself seriously. Anyway, it went through that, and I kept doing this till I was 17. When I was 17, I had a fall. A very dear friend of mine put a fishing line across the stairs. Man, I tripped, and trying to be an acrobat, I somersaulted, and I landed on my back instead of my butt. And bounced down the stairs and fractured my spine in 3 places, completely paralyzed. No, don't say, oh. First thing I said, wow, this is great. I don't have to work, I don't have to study, people are going to bring me food. So my mom said, I don't think that's the right attitude. You're supposed to be sad and depressed. For me, it was like, okay, now life's going to be one long holiday. Anyway, so all the doctors came, shook their heads and said, nothing can be done, the boy's going to be in bed for the rest of his life. He can't even sit in a wheelchair, you'll have to strap him up because the spine is gone completely. So I burst out laughing. So he said, I think the boy's getting hysterical, we have to give him a sedative. I said, no, just leave the room. I need to talk to my dad. My dad was, of course, understandably overwrought with this whole situation. So I said, Dad, if you have a very expensive car, and if it were to give trouble, where would you go for repairs? To the mechanic by the roadside or to the factory? He said, expensive car, I would definitely go to the factory. I said, to me, the doctor is the mechanic by the roadside. I am going to the factory. So he said, that sounds wonderful, but what are you going to do about it? I said, I need a favor. Well, in that moment of emotion, he said, sure, anything. I said, anything? He says, anything. I said, okay. I want you to keep the light on, uncover my toes, I want to look at my toes, and go out and lock the room. He said, for what? I said, when I press the buzzer, only then come in. So he said, are you sure? So I said, yes, that's exactly what I want. So he went outside. My mother nearly killed him. She said, the boy can go into depression, he can probably try to commit suicide. He said, he's paralyzed, how can he commit suicide? That's my dad. Very practical. Anyway, so I just looked up and said, listen, I'm not going to ask you more than once. You made me, you fix me. Nothing happened. In 72 hours, I could start wiggling my toes a little bit. I could feel a sensation. In 1 month, I was walking. So from there on, I just went on through my life doing things like this and never really thinking too much about it. The next year, I had an accident on a bicycle and the handlebar went into my liver. Yeah. Awful, isn't it? Yeah. And there I was laughing and saying, it's hurting. And he's saying, why are you laughing? I said, well, it's better than crying. Anyway, went in for surgery, went into coma because of loss of blood. But I could hear, and the doctor telling my mother, call the priest, he won't live till the morning. And all I could think was, like hell. So anyway, 4 o'clock in the morning, I come out of coma, fine, have a shave, new aftershave lotion. I'm sitting up in bed with all my pipes and tubes, and the doctor comes in and says, what? This guy's shamming. Anyway, I never really took it seriously thereafter. I still carried on my own little selfish life until 87. In 87, there was, I don't know if most of you may remember, there was this great big stock market crash. October 19th, one day after my birthday. I lost everything I had, and all I did was think about, there's a message here. And from there on, I started doing healing because I had this power which I never really capitalized on. And it just grew from strength to strength. There's nothing much more to say about my life except that I still play Santa Claus. People come to me and say, I need this, I want that, I can't get this, I can't do that. And I say, done. And it comes from an attitude of being super arrogant.